Hi guys, welcome back to another video lesson. We are kind of starting to wrap up our week talking about books. So we talked about the book do's and don'ts, how you treat a book. We talked about the book basics, the features, like the front cover, the back cover, the spine. Then we talked about book jobs. So 3 people have jobs, sometimes 2, the author, the illustrator, and the reader. We got to enjoy the story finally, School's First Day of School. So that is our fiction story. That's a fake story that we know could never happen, but it's a good story. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I enjoyed reading it. Now today we are going to read a nonfiction story. That means it's not fake, it's all real. And this is an informational story. Okay, if you watched the entire video the other day from School's First Day of School, this one is also about school. This one's also, this one's about one-room schoolhouses. So this is real, true information of what school used to look like way back in the day. And in answer to question, no, I was not alive during this time. No, I didn't go to a one-room schoolhouse. I went to a school like this. No, your parents didn't go to a one-room schoolhouse. No, not even your grandparents went to a one-room schoolhouse, okay? So this was long time ago how schools used to be. Okay, as I'm reading, I want you to pay careful attention because this is an information story. I want you to pull out some facts or some things that you learned about one-room schoolhouses. I'm betting that you've probably never even heard of a one-room schoolhouse. So there's going to be a lot of facts and a lot of information that's going to be maybe quite surprising to you. In your packets, you're going to need that information because I want you to fill this out. As you can see, it says fact 1 and fact 2. So some things that you learned about the one-room schoolhouse. If we were actually in school, we would do this and then we would display it for your parents and everybody to see. But since we're not, I'm still going to have you do it so you can learn something new. There's a spot for your name. And then as best as you can, write 2 different facts. So a fact is a true statement. It's not just a word or 2. It's a full, complete thought, a full, complete statement. Okay, and then of course when you're done, you can color your one-room schoolhouse. Okay, so this is kind of a lot of information. So maybe if you hear something you like, have your parents jot it down, write it down for you, or you can always watch the video and pause it, okay? So take a look. Here is a picture of a very old one-room schoolhouse. And they call it a one-room schoolhouse because there was only one room. There was no cafeteria, there was no gym, there wasn't even a bathroom. There was just one room for the teacher and all the kids. Okay, so I want you to take a look at that picture while I read all this and see what kind of information and what kind of facts that you can pull out that you learned. So, in the early 1800s and early 1900s, most American students attended a one-room schoolhouse. It's exactly how it sounds. There was only one room, one teacher, and students of all grades ranging from 1st grade through 8th grade. So you could probably be in the same class as if you had a brother or sister or cousins. A lot of you have older siblings, so maybe you and your 6th grade sibling were in the exact same class, even though you were in 2 different grades, because there was only one room and only one teacher. Class sizes varied from anywhere from a handful to 40 students. Could you imagine 40 students? Our class right now, there's 24 kids, and I don't know if you've seen these classrooms, but they're not that big, so I can't even imagine having 40 kids in here. The younger students sat in the front, closer to the teacher, and the older students sat in the back. Younger students focused on reading, arithmetic, which is math, handwriting, history, and geography, which is like social studies. Students had to memorize and recite their lessons out loud. Older students were expected to help tutor the younger students and teach themselves from any books that were available. Rooms had wooden desks and a wooden stove for the colder months. Okay, so one room, one teacher, about 40 kids. The youngest kids sat in the front and they had to focus on reading, writing, math, science, and social studies, just like we do in school. The older kids sat in the back and they basically had to teach themselves from whatever books. And then on top of teaching themselves, they also had to help teach the younger kids too. Talk about a lot of responsibility. And like, in school, just like at your house, when it's hot out, we could turn on the air conditioner. When it's cold out, we can turn on the heat. They didn't have that back then, so they had a stove, kind of like a fireplace, where you put wood in there and it's going to heat up the whole room. So I learned a lot just from that page. Okay, take a look at this. So here's a real picture of some teachers. So as you can see, there's like a stove back there. And this looks like maybe food they're making. I don't know. Let's read about it. In the beginning of American schools, most teachers were men because the idea was that the women should stay home with their families and only men should work. But as America started growing, the idea of who was to teach has changed. It became the norm for teachers to be young, unmarried women. By 1870, a fourth of women had been a teacher at one point. This was one of the first jobs thought to be appropriate for women and provided them a sense of independence. So basically what all this was saying is back in the day, it was expected that women or girls stay home and take care of their families, clean the house, make dinner, while the men, the boys, got to go out and work and be anything they wanted to be. But then times changed where slowly women started to be teacher. And if you look at our school now, most of your teachers are women, okay, especially in the elementary. Once you get to like high school, then you start to have male teachers, but the majority of the teachers at HSA are female, they're girls. So times certainly have changed with that. Okay, so here is a picture inside their classroom. You can see their wooden desks. You can see they don't have all the great resources and supplies we have. There's a spot up front for the teacher. They only have a map. They don't have beautiful smart boards, dry erase boards, none of that. And then here's the stove I was talking about to heat up the classroom in the colder months to keep them warm. So with as many as 40 students in a class, it was very important for a teacher to maintain control. So we're talking about discipline. They didn't have class dojo where they can just message mom or dad or take a point away or give a point. They didn't have a clip chart either. So let's see how they discipline their children. Sometimes very harsh punishments were used for students who acted out. Students who misbehaved had to stand against the wall holding a heavy stack of books. Another punishment was the dunce hat. It was a tall, pointy white cap. It hung on the wall as a reminder and had to be worn by students who acted out. This caused other students to make fun of them. So I'm looking, I don't really see the dunce hat. So if a student misbehaved, they'd have to stand facing the corner holding heavy books. You could imagine that's going to be tiring, hurt your arms. Or they had to wear a dunce cap. And a dunce cap is kind of like a really tall party hat. But it was embarrassing for the kids. And they didn't like wearing it. So here's kind of, again, I'm not an illustrator, but here's kind of like an example of a dunce cap. You could also Google it and see what it looked like. It's kind of like a big party hat, but it's not fun at all. It was embarrassing, and it even said that the kids got to make fun of the other kids for wearing it. So you obviously didn't want to get made fun of, so you didn't want to act out, so you didn't wear that dunce cap. Not very nice, but I guess if it worked, it worked. Okay, let's talk quickly about how students got to school. Okay, so there's the one-room schoolhouse. I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to tell you that most students, they walk to school. They walk to and from school in the rain, in the snow, in the sunshine, in the heat, in the cold. They walk to school. I mean, they didn't really have school buses to take them. They didn't have the city buses. They didn't have cars yet. Some people would get to school on a horse and carriage, like a horse and a buggy. Otherwise, it says sometimes students would walk for 4 or 5 miles just to get to school, and then they'd have to walk that back home. I mean, I don't know about you, but I live pretty far from school, so I can't imagine walking to school every day. I wouldn't come because it's too far. Okay, last thing. Let's talk about the fun times they had. So there's the one-room schoolhouse again. And as you can see, that's what they had to play with. It looks like a very basic swing set. I mean, I don't even know if there's swings on there. I don't know about you, but it doesn't look like that to me. So I'm betting most of their games were running around. They made up games, stuff like that. And really quick, remember I told you it's one-room schoolhouse? Where do you think they had to go to the bathroom? Okay, so kids did get recess time. At recess, the kids would eat their lunch that they had brought with them in a tin pail. So kind of like a lunch box. Lunch usually consisted of a biscuit, meat, and an apple. So they definitely didn't have all these fun juices we have. Definitely no Takis or Flaming Hots. No Lunchables. They had none of that. They sounded like they had a pretty basic and boring lunch to me. If they forgot their lunch, they were out of luck. So they didn't have a cafeteria. They didn't have people to make them lunch or bring them food. If you forgot it, you just had to starve until you got home or hope that somebody shared their lunch with you. There was not a cafeteria or lunch ladies. After eating, kids would go play games together. These games involved no equipment, so no resources, no jump rope, no hula hoop, no balls. These games involved no equipment as there wasn't anything, but maybe a ball if they were lucky. Popular games were Prisoner, Run Sheep Run, and Annie Over. There was no such thing as gym class either. Younger kids learned all the games from their older siblings. So, I don't know about you, but I definitely learned a lot about our one-room schoolhouse. We talked about what it was and the kids that went there. We talked about how teachers weren't women for the longest time, and then finally there were women teachers. We talked about transportation, how they got to and from school. We talked about if they got in trouble, what happened. And then we talked about lunchtime and recess time and the fun things they did. So maybe to you and me, it doesn't sound so fun after all, because we're used to all the things we have. We're used to a playground outside. We're used to our jump rope, our ball, our hula hoop. We're used to our tablets, our Nintendo Switches, all our fun electronics at home. They didn't have this, so they had to make up their own fun by running around, playing with a stick and a ball. They had to make up games. So I bet it was fun for them because they didn't know things like Xbox and PlayStation. Would you want to go to a one-room schoolhouse? I don't know. I probably would not because I didn't grow up in that time. I grew up with, like you, with all the luxuries that we have. Okay, your assignment now is to complete this activity. So I learned so much, as you probably did too, but something that as I was reading really jumped out at you. Were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I couldn't believe that. That's going to be a fact that you're going to write here. So I just want you to identify just 2 of them. Write them in a complete sentence as best as you can. Of course, mom or dad, your sister or brother, whoever's there with you can help, but I don't want them doing it. I want you doing it. And then, of course, when you're done, you can color your one-room schoolhouse. Maybe if you get done, maybe on the back, maybe you want to draw what the inside of your one-room schoolhouse would look like, or what the outside would look like, or what would the fun times be? Okay, so you got to think this was a long time ago. No Xbox, no Lunchables, nothing like that. Okay, so I can't wait to see what you learned about one-room schoolhouses. I can't wait to hear your opinions and thoughts. And of course, I can't wait to see your beautiful pictures.